"10 reasons your memories are complete BS." Number 10. Flashbulb memories. Do you remember where you were on 9/11? Or maybe when Michael Jackson died? How about when fidget spinners became a thing? Terrible and shocking events like these can cause people to form vivid memories of where and when they were when they heard them. The unusually rich detail of these memories has led to them being called flashbulb memories, referring to the flash of a camera when a perfect picture is taken. Considering the power of these flashbacks, it's hard to imagine them being incorrect, but they can be just as unreliable as any other memory. In 1982, cognitive psychologist Ulrich Neser started to seriously study flashbulb memories. His interest wasn't just professional. Neser admitted he had his own incorrect recollection of listening to a baseball game on the Sunday Pearl Harbor happened. Though he could clearly recall the memory, he knew it was wrong, as there are no baseball broadcasts on Sundays. Neser's seminal study came after the Challenger disaster of 1986. He asked undergraduates to tell him where they were when they heard the space shuttle had blown up. When he asked them again a few years later, a staggering 25% had concocted completely different memories of the event. Number 9. Memory rewriting. If you want to preserve your memories, you should really stop remembering them. That's because every time you recall a moment from your past, your brain changes how you see it. Despite sounding like somewhere hippos go to get degrees, the hippocampus is actually your memory center. It's the part of the brain that updates old memories with new experiences, rewriting them into stories that fit with our current information. That's because, as far as your brain is concerned, having a perfect record of the past is less important than having useful information to aid survival in the present. The extent to which we rewrite the past was shown in a recent study by Northwestern University in Chicago. Participants were shown a background, like a farm, with an image laid over the top. They were then shown the image in a new location on a second background. Finally, they were shown the old background and the new image in the first and second locations, as well as a random new one. When asked to pick the original location, all test respondents picked the second updated location. So your brain rewrites your recollection of the past to make sense in the present, and you're not the only one messing with your memories. Number 8. Implantation. Here's a terrifying fact. It's incredibly easy to implant someone with false memories. In fact, all you have to do is ask the right questions. In 1995, Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, a professor of psychology at the University of California, proved that very thing in a groundbreaking study on the formation of memories. Speaking to 24 separate people, Dr. Loftus asked each participant a series of questions about the time they got lost at the mall as a child. Little did the volunteers know, Loftus had spoken to their families in advance to check that such a thing had never happened. But that didn't stop 25% of the test participants from forming distinct memories of being abandoned in a shopping centre. Yep, Dr. Loftus full-on inceptioned a group with false memories, and she didn't even have to go into their dreams or team up with Leo. Dark as it sounds, the implications of this memory mind control aren't only terrifying. Various experts believe this memory hacking could be used to implant happy memories into those suffering from PTSD. It sounds crazy, but would making up false memories to try and help someone still really be unethical? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Number 7. Cryptomnesia. No one likes a thief, and while it's annoying when someone steals your TV or your car, there's something even more insidious about a person stealing your ideas. This happens all the time to creative types. If you're a brilliant painter, a fantastic writer, or a talented young stand-up who writes top 10 videos for a living, there's a pretty good chance someone is replicating your art. However, this process may be less deliberate than it seems. Sure, there are thousands who just shamelessly pilfer other people's work, but many experts believe that subconscious plagiarism is universal. In a process known as cryptomnesia, our brain will sometimes return discarded old memories into our conscious mind. Because these memories have been long forgotten, we often mistake merely remembering something for coming up with it in the first place. The more you read, watch and play, the more likely you are to have absorbed and then accidentally recycled an idea. Even the greatest of minds are susceptible. Nietzsche, Lord Byron and Helen Keller have all been accused of cryptomnesia. Number 6. Memory biases. You may not be surprised to hear that traumatic and upsetting memories tend to be more memorable. After all, memory helps inform how we see the world, and if something terrible happens, your brain's survival instinct is going to be pretty keen that you remember it, so it's less likely to happen again. But you may be more surprised to learn that there's a whole array of factors that change how likely your mind is to cling onto a memory. For example, you're more likely to be able to recall something if it was funny. That's why the only thing you remember from maths class is that time your mate called the teacher mum and then wet himself. Scientists aren't exactly sure why the comedic sticks in the mind for longer, but many believe it's because our brains take longer to process humour than other impulses, giving a funny moment more time to make an impression on our brains. You're also more likely to remember something if you left it unfinished, presumably because that's your brain's way of nagging you into being more productive. And interestingly, you might also be more likely to remember an event if someone of the same gender as you were involved. Is your brain a sexist? In the interest of avoiding a war in the comment section, we'll let you decide. Number 5. Telescoping effect. By now, it should be pretty clear that your memories are not a great record of what has happened. But what's stranger is that your memories aren't necessarily even a great record of when things happened. That's down to a process known as telescoping. First coined in 1964 by the researchers Nita and Waxberg, telescoping is either when an old event is remembered as having occurred more recently than it did, or when a new event is recalled as being older than it actually was. That's right, your favourite childhood memory might only have happened last week. Although this time warping mix-up doesn't occur all that often and no one knows exactly why it happens, it can have real-world consequences. Studies have shown that smokers often subconsciously bring forward the date at which they started smoking. And that's dangerous because it can convince smokers they haven't been smoking for that long, and so are less at risk of diseases like lung or throat cancer. Number 4. Mood. If you're in a couple, you hopefully get on with your partner pretty well, but of course every relationship has its rough moments. Like the time your partner got too drunk at a party, or that time your boyfriend forgot your anniversary, or that time you caught your girlfriend looking at her yoga teacher and got so jealous you started practicing yoga at home, only to throw your back out and end up in hospital with a massive medical bill, a bill you then had to start working overtime to pay off, which in turn made your girlfriend feel neglected and ironically ended up driving her into the arms of the same yoga teacher. Which is a purely hypothetical example, obviously. Anyway, your mood in that moment can completely change the way you remember feeling in the past. So if you're happy with your partner, you'll remember being happy in your memories with them. But look at those exact same memories while in a bad mood and you remember them in a much more negative light. A study into grief by the journal Psychology of Well-Being found that most people who'd lost loved ones grew less depressed over the years. But more surprisingly, it also found that when patients were asked to reflect on how depressed they'd felt at various points after the death, they remembered being at whatever level of grief they were currently at. In other words, they projected their current emotions onto a past memory. Number 3. Memory conformity. We've already seen how other people can deliberately load you up with false memories, but it seems that they can also do it by accident. Memory conformity, or to use its more terrifying name, the social contagion of memory, is a theory claiming that one person's report of a memory can massively influence how someone else remembers it. One famous example of this occurring was after the Oklahoma City bombing. In 1995, Timothy McVeigh blew up the Murrah Federal Building, killing 168 people. 3 witnesses were later separately questioned about the event, with only one claiming McVeigh had an accomplice. But when the 3 were interviewed again after talking to each other, they suddenly all believed McVeigh had had a helper. The FBI now believe McVeigh acted alone, but that the 3 witnesses subconsciously decided to settle on one story, making the incident seem clearer in their minds. Some people also use this phenomenon to explain the Mandela effect, whereby entire groups come to believe in a collective false memory. Sorry, conspiracy theorists, but there's no dimension-jumping Nelson Mandela or grand scheme to cover up the true spelling of Berniston Bears. You're just confusing one another. Number 2. Déjà vu. Déjà vu is that uncomfortable feeling you get when you're unsure if you've experienced something before. Déjà vu is that uncomfortable feeling you get when you're unsure if you've experienced something before. Okay, that's just me messing with you. Real déjà vu is actually a far more complicated phenomenon. For years, scientists believed that déjà vu was caused by the brain seeing something it recognized, but in a new context. For example, you may be used to seeing this grumpy stock model watching TV. That's some top quality acting there. Where's her Oscar? But if you see the same model working as a nurse, the clash of the familiar and the new will leave your brain confused as to whether or not it's had this experience before. However, a new study by the University of St Andrews suggests it's not that simple. They claim that déjà vu is really the brain checking the validity of a memory. In other words, déjà vu is actually the brain attempting to block a false memory from being formed, which leads to confusion in your conscious mind. This would explain why déjà vu gets less common with age, while the probability of memory errors increases. Wait, did I already say that? Number 1. Confirmation bias. Come on, admit it, we all kind of like being right. And while you might not think that your desire to win Facebook arguments with your uncle is enough to rewrite your memory, it turns out it totally is. Schema theory, first posited by Immanuel Kant of all people, suggests that the mind is more likely to recall information that reinforces rather than defeats its pre-existing beliefs. One study in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology presented two groups with a profile of a woman and a series of examples of her being extroverted and introverted. The only difference between the groups was that the first was told that the woman was a librarian, while the latter were informed that she was a real estate agent. When asked to recall some behaviours by the woman, the first group remembered mainly introverted ones and the second mainly extroverted. Basically, their minds better recalled facts that already fit their stereotypes of the two jobs. Technology has the capacity to make this effect even worse. Online echo chambers make it easier than ever to only see facts and ideas you agree with. That's not to say people can't challenge and evolve their worldviews, but as the research shows, even if your consciousness wants to seek out balanced information, your memory is a partisan hack. So that was 10 reasons your memories are complete BS. Are you feeling uncertain? Did you even just watch this video? Feel free to share your panic attack with us in the comments below. And whatever you do, make sure you remember to watch 10 Ways the Internet Changes Your Brain, playing on screen right now.